Hello, welcome, or welcome back, whichever you are. In spite of the fact that this is my first time speaking today, my throat is weirdly sore. So if that comes through in the mic, if I'm sounding a little bit less angelic than normal, I'm sorry. You're just gonna have to deal with it. There's really nothing I can do. I literally have a hot water. What more could you want? So on April 6th, Wave 4 of the DLC for Fire Emblem Engage came out, which included the Fell Xenologue, and I played it, and I actually really liked it. I'm not that surprised because I have a trailer reaction that I'll link up somewhere where I anticipated that I would really enjoy this, and it was as expected. Honestly, the biggest surprise was that it came out on April 6th, which was a Thursday, question mark. Going into it, I already had a sneaking suspicion that this would be to my tastes, and it really was. Like, it honestly kind of slayed. I really enjoyed the smaller cast. I feel like honing in on an insular set of characters really worked, and I felt like the characterization was strong. I was really able to get behind each of the members of this party, even Nil, who was annoying as fuck. I had a nice time. It was predictable, sure, but I'm okay with that. It's only supposed to take like a few hours to get through. Like, it's generally supposed to be fast because you're supposed to be able to integrate it into a playthrough, which I thought was cool. I think it's a better way of incorporating a sort of side story like this, especially because Three Houses is the only other time that this has happened. In Three Houses, you accessed a completely separate story from the main game, and then when you went to go start a new game after finishing Cindered Shadows, those characters would just be like readily available to you, I think in like chapter 3 or something, and there wasn't really a narrative justification for why they were there. So I appreciate... Actually, there are pros and cons to the way that they did this for Engage. On the one hand, I enjoy that it takes part in the main game, or that you have to access the content through the main game, because then it just makes more sense. I feel like narratively, if you go through an entire playthrough, I plan to do that eventually, where I play through on a New Game Plus, just re-experiencing the story, using characters that I didn't use, and seeing how all of the patch additions and DLC content changes the experience, because my initial playthrough was completely without any of that. I didn't even have like Wave 1 DLC stuff. So I think that's cool. But on the other hand, I didn't know how to access the DLC. Like, I couldn't find it. I did have to Google it. I just don't think that was like posted clearly enough anywhere, because I was looking in the main menus because I thought it would function the same as Cindered Shadows. So I was like, I know I paid real world dollars for this. Where is she? Anyways, I did find it. You have to access it through the main game. Not necessarily a con, because now that I know, I'm never going to face that issue again, but it was a little bit annoying. Honestly, one thing that I appreciated most about the Xenologue was the fact that it takes something that actually really pissed me off about the main game. Not to plug a second video, but I do have a video where I talk about my initial Engage playthrough and how I felt about the story and stuff. It'll be in a card or in a pinned comment. I didn't like the Multiverse of Madness kind of nonsense that they were trying in the main game, especially with Sombron. Like, that was so trite and silly, but I honestly don't mind that they allowed us, the player character, to then take advantage of this multiverse stuff, especially because it's an alternate universe of the one that we're familiar with, and not, I don't know what was going on with Sombron, and frankly, I didn't need it. I would like to return it. I really loved the kind of middle school fanfic level of writing that we were getting. Like, it was really endearing to me. I don't know how else to describe it.
Goodbye, my fellow divine dragon, my twin from another world. On your journey, I hope you feel joy, suffering, sorrow, and love, because I will feel nothing anymore. I will never awaken again.
Some of the dialogue was just a little bit on the nose and didn't totally work. I'm mostly talking about the royals. Also, like, how convenient that all of their retainers are dead, because then you don't have to write around all the stupid characters. Argue with me in the comments. Because yeah, like, Celine is just evil. Alchrist is just evil. Like, they make them comic villains, which I don't mind. When it's something short and really fast paced like this, I don't really care if it's stupid, because at least we're keeping things moving. So unlike in the main game that's 60 hours, with the Fell Xenologue, you don't have a lot of time to get bored, because the pacing is reasonable. I kind of appreciated the alternate Elios map, feeling like, if you've ever played A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS, there's Hyrule and then there's Lorule. Like, the way that they did upside down Elios is like the same as Lorule, in the way that the grass is like weirdly yellower, and for some reason like the blues are purple. Like, intentionally making these kind of aesthetic color hue shifts to make the world feel unnatural. Also, another thing that I loved about the Xenologue is that it takes stabs like multiple times at the main game. Like, I was a little surprised because I felt that Engage was self-aware up until a point. Like, it became the snake eating its own tail. So it was like making fun of itself, and then it became the thing it was making fun of. So I find it really interesting that the Fel Xenologue is not afraid to critique itself. I just found it really interesting that the story of this really points out the flaw in the main game. And I know a lot of people feel this way, not just specifically with Engage, but about a lot of stories where so much emphasis is placed on like the chosen one main character, and they get such high level treatment from the narrative, from the other characters. I feel like the Fel Xenologue highlights the flaw of overdependence in the chosen one, because it's basically saying that the world is going to fall apart without a central body to worship. Like, does it really make sense that because the divine dragon dies, now all of a sudden all these other countries are at each other's throats and like no one is okay? I don't think so. But that reading obviously doesn't exist without the contrast of having the main narrative where Alir is alive, and then this flip side narrative where Alir is dead and more Fel dragons are alive. So the first chapter starts off with like this really long lore dump about how, what should I call it? Elios is up here. Lolios, like Lorule? Sure. It's a lot of expository dialogue about how Lolios is effectively the same as Elios in every single way, but there are slight differences. Like, we really trim the fat. This could have been so much shorter as an introduction. I think the most important part is the fact that more Fel dragon children are alive, including specifically Nil and Nell, who are the focal point of this DLC because they're actually new characters. Nil and Nell are twins, and we learn about this Fel dragon dynamic that all Fel births are twin births. There are no solo babies in this culture. There's always a stronger twin and a weaker twin. That exists with Nil and Nell because Nell can transform into a dragon and Nil simply cannot. So we open up with all this lore. There's talk about these bracelets. There's 7 of them. I think there should have been 12. And I think each game in the series that got a ring in the main game should have had a secondary bracelet for the flip side in this DLC. I know that's kind of overkill, but I guess that's only like 5 more. And I also think that there were better options for secondary characters that they could have picked. I know a lot of people are on the Camilla hate train. Like, just in general, I don't mind Camilla at all. I don't like her voice actress. Actually, most of the bracelet characters, I don't like their voice actors. So that's just a symptom across the board, I guess.
I'm Tiki. Are you a divine dragon like me? I don't know anything about an invocation. My head feels fuzzy. It hurts.
I don't mind Camilla, but I do think Azura was the more obvious and stronger pick as a secondary representative from the Fates extended universe. But yeah, like, we should have had an Alm ring. I'm not familiar with genealogy of the Holy War. Whatever Sigurd's wife name is. Or like Seliph. Thracia 776, I also don't know the characters really well. Sacred Stones, I don't understand why Erica and Ephraim were sharing a ring to begin with. It should have just been Erica, and then Ephraim could have had a bracelet. For the Binding Blade, Lilina is the secondary character to Roy, so it should have been her. I'm missing one. Oh, Radiant Dawn. We should have had a Soth ring. An actual dedicated thief. Oh, I said ring. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my god, forgive me. Please subscribe. Bracelet. We should have had a Soth bracelet. Anywho, in Lothos. I think in Lethos they have like 3 of the bracelets, and then there's like a staged attack, and then each of the kingdoms has 1 each. Oh, also another thing that I didn't love about the Xenologue is that even though you're going around and retrieving the bracelets, you can't actually use the bracelets unless you've unlocked them as a part of the main campaign. Because I was looking forward to using them, and I thought maybe we'd get access to them separately and then they wouldn't carry over to the main game, but that is not the case. I kind of understand why they did that, because, you know, you only have really 2 choices. Either you have them temporarily and you lose them in the DLC, or you just have them in the main game, and then when you go to play the DLC, you have them or you don't. Like, I get why they made that choice, but as someone who finished the main game and didn't immediately do New Game Plus again to test out the bracelets, it would have been cool to be able to go in, try the bracelets per map, and not necessarily retain them. but I guess that's more so specific to me because I didn't have access to the bracelets in my first playthrough. In one of my earliest notes, I write Nell and Alear have chemistry, which is so true. They have a burning chemistry like the whole time because they're fighting, but it's the type of fighting that you expect like one of them to stop arguing and then they just like start making out. They're that kind of fighting. Okay, also, question for the audience. I played as girl Alear, and then the gender was flipped when I went to go play the DLC. So dead blue hair Alear was a boy. I'm assuming if you play as boy, alternate universe Alear is a girl. So yeah, you have this little fight. These wolves are attacking you. The wolves inflict a status condition where if you get bit by them, you have a temporary debuff to your HP and it goes down by 5. And Nil has a status recovery staff for some reason, but Nil can't use it, which is odd. Nil overall being useless dead weight does have a point in the end, but we will get to that when we get to that. Also, I noticed that this like curse status never comes up again. I thought part of the challenge and like the reinvention of these maps was going to be new character classes that aren't in the base game, maybe some new map objectives, map variety, and playing around with these status buffs. And I think they do that successfully to a degree. There are 6 chapters in the Xenologue. Each one opens with a monologue that's basically like a poem, and then it closes with a flashback. This narratively worked extremely well. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if they brought it back for the next main series game. I just felt it was nice for like setting the table and then moving the plot along, and we got appropriate exposition and context. We get a flashback with the twins. Nell gives Nil her dragon stone so he feels like he's being helpful because he feels like he's worthless. And they live in like a very toxic community of shitty little dragon people, which naturally would make Nil insecure as someone who cannot transform into a dragon. At this young age, they vow that they'll always be together. Honestly, this sibling dynamic really worked for me. I thought they were so cute. Also, I love very much that Nell can transform into a dragon. Like, I'm glad that they were saving that for somewhere else because I was quite disappointed that Alear couldn't transform into a dragon, especially being the child of someone who can. In chapter 2, we meet Celestia, who is the otherworld alternate universe equivalent of Zephia. I made the critique that the royals become comically evil, and I do have the same critique for these alternate versions of the villains. I do think they become comically nice. I think it would have been interesting if they maintained just a little bit of the original character's edge, because I think they're really likable. I just think that giving them a little bit of nuance would have just fleshed out the characters more. I'm sure someone in the comments will be like, well, if you look at their support conversations, but I'm not there yet. I'm just doing this off of the DLC. I don't know anything about these characters beyond what this DLC shows me. Nell and Nil kind of have anti-hero Taylor Swift vibes. So it could have been interesting if it was a ragtag group of people with complex motivations. I know that's crazy of me to ask from the stories that I consume. We cut to a scene of Celine and Alfred, and Selena's being crazy because she's like, brother, if we don't attack now, everyone is going to die. And everyone we love is already dead. So we need to move it or lose it. And Alfred is like, I guess we're going to move it. So there's a fight. I thought we killed them, but it turns out you don't actually kill them. In this conversation that happens right after, Alfred and Celine have like a fake turn of heart. And it's like so obvious that they're being overly nice. And the switch up is just like so drastic that it's obvious that they have an ulterior motive and they're being fake because they ask for their bracelet back after we retrieved it. And Nell's like, no, what are you talking about? We're not giving the bracelet back. And actually, you can't come with us because Nell is smart and knows that they have something planned. Also, Selena's racist, and she hates fell dragon folk. So the party leaves, and Alear is like, maybe we should have brought them with us, but also Alfred was being like really, really weird. And Nell gets notably angry with Alear. She's like, you don't have authority here. You can't make decisions. This is not your world to play around in, because at the end of the day, you always have the option to leave. So let's set some boundaries. You can't just do whatever you want. And then Celestia's in the corner talking to Nil, and she's like, they have chemistry. And Nil is like, they sure do. At this point, because Nil has been a deadweight loser, I thought Nil was going to die, like for sure. Especially because immediately after we get a flashback of them as children again, and it's all the siblings dying and infighting between twins to prove their dominance. Like, that's all that's happening in this flashback, is just illustrating that they lived in a really difficult dog-eat-dog, dragon-eats-dragon world. We move on to chapter 3. The party is moving up from Fiorine to Brodia because obviously they're on a quest to get all the bracelets back. Alir says, we should be in Brodia soon, right? And Nell is like, no, we've been in Brodia for a while. And Alir was like, oh, wow, that's crazy that Brodia has encroached on Firene's borders so much. This also gives us some insight as to why Selene wanted to attack Brodia immediately, and it's because they were losing territory. Like, just watching the scene in Firene between Selene and Alfred doesn't really make any sense, but this piece of world building serves to justify it a little bit more. Anyways, Alir is like, wow, that's so crazy that, the borders have changed. It's not like that in my world. And Nell is honestly such a bitch. And she's like, well, I guess you're going to have to reschedule the parade now that you know that the borders have changed. And it was so rude and out of pocket. And I'm obsessed with Nell. Nell is the main character that we deserve. I think nuanced, troubled, actually has something to say. Am I an Nell stan? I think that's what we're learning. So in the fallout of the war, Diamant has become soft and sad. He's a little shy boy. And Alchrist has really taken the lead. And Alchrist is like rude and petty. Honestly, Alchrist and Selene basically have the same personality in that they're just evil and want to annihilate. So we fight these royals. Obviously, that's the entire point of this DLC. And I just have to say that Diamant looks so good with Emblem Veronica. Like, it's actually crazy. Like, because he's wearing all red, he just looks really good wielding the staff that is Veronica's signature weapon. It just looks like they really fit together. Also, the implications of Emblem Veronica are actually crazy. Like, when Diamant used the special summoning skill, I was like, could you imagine if it was just like every single character from Heroes, like anybody could just show up? That really would have sent me. But again, Veronica being here, one, solidifies that this game, Engage, is just intelligent systems saying we wanted to make a mainline Heroes game. And two, it's all about the multiverse, baby. So you win the fight against the brothers. We have another flashback, and it's of Nell being bullied as a child for having a loser brother. And then Nell goes crazy, becomes a huge dragon, kills a bunch of people, and then Sombron is like, you slayed. Nell, you ate. Sombron declares Nell as his heir because she's brutal, Olivia Rodrigo. And you guys were right about the reveal trailer at the end where it was just the voice line and the screen was black. It was Diamant saying that. And it was because Nell kills Alchrist and Diamant in like cold blood. And then she also casually reveals that she woke up in the middle of the night and went back to kill Selene and Alfred too. That was crazy. That was the reveal of the century. I was not expecting this DLC to make me feel anything, let alone shock and awe. In Chapter 4, we meet Madeline and Mauvier, this world's Mauvier. It's so obvious that he's going to die because they narratively don't really let him talk that much, and he has the same design as the Mauvier from the main story. Also, I said it before and I'll say it again, I do not like that Madeline is wearing all blue. I wonder if you can hear my neighbors who are talking in the hallway. We'll pause and hold space for them. Okay, they're done. Whistling. It's 11 o'clock at night and you're whistling in the hallway? I get that it's 420, but do we have to turn up that hard? So this battle is about Solm invading Elugia, and I like this chapter for a multitude of reasons. One, it is the only chapter, I think, in this entire game where it's a 3-faction map, and I think, especially with 6 different nations, technically, they could have done that so much more in the main game. Also, I don't think Solm plays a relevant role in the main story of Engage outside of the fact that it exists and it happens to be a setting where things take place. But Solm isn't really relevant. So even though the whole point of this narrative is that the nations are warring anyways, I appreciated that they imbued Solm with some intentions. I made a note saying that this is the first battle where I used Emblem Alir, which is true. I didn't use them at all in the base game, and I didn't think they were that strong. Maybe it's because I was using someone who could only use Alir at a level 1, but I was like, your special ability isn't one-shotting an enemy, and the enemies on this map aren't even that strong. It's kind of flop behavior. In this fight, we learn alternate universe Ivy has adopted her father's plan, and she wants to revive the Fell Dragon, and Tamara has literally become a warlord. Oh, also like a cool little detail that you're not going to find unless you're looking for it, and I think I just came across it by accident. The character classes for each of the royals are the same, but they're named something different, and they have new descriptions too, basically describing how they've fallen from grace. Also, Tamara is equipped with Camilla's ring. And I know it's obvious to give Ivy Camilla's ring because they're both femme fatale wyvern riders. Like, I know it's on the nose. But if it's right, it's right. Anyways, we win the battle, and Nell, this time, doesn't wait until the middle of the night to kill the royals in secret. She just does it in front of the party. And no one is phased, and Alir freaks out. Alir is like, you shouldn't do that. That's actually crazy. Like, even though they're fighting and even though they're doing the wrong thing, maybe killing them isn't necessarily better. And then Nell is like, baby, they're all corrupted. They were already dead. They're zombies that have been brought back to life. I am not killing them. So that's the second big plot twist. So Nell and Alir are having this fight, but Nell eats Alir up and is like, you come from an alternate world where we aren't there, but these people that I'm killing are. And I imagine it would be very hard for you just to see the image of your friends dying, because even though they're not your friends and they're not living people, I don't want to pose that challenge for you, especially because Alir at the end of the day has to go back to their own world. So part of Nell getting frustrated with Alir isn't just about Nell wanting to establish appropriate boundaries. Like, it's also to protect Alir in a way. And Alir also acknowledges that the royals in this world were Nell's friends too, and they're dead. So that must be painful for her. Like, they have a very productive conversation until Nell gets extremely emotional and basically reveals that her and the Alir of this universe who is dead, they were romantically entangled. So Nell starts like screaming at Alir. Like, she's very obviously projecting, but it's like healing for her because she's just saying that she loved him and that he broke his promise to come back. Like, she's obviously not mad at Alir. Nell runs away and the four hounds are like, we need to go check up on her. And then Nil, literally as soon as those characters are gone, you can see it in the eyes. Like, kudos to the animation team, because as soon as they walked away, I could tell that even though these are animated characters, like, there was no life behind those eyes. And I could tell that Nil was about to be crazy. Nil removes the fake smile. It's very like Toby to Obito in Naruto. Like, there's just such a big character shift that comes out of that clumsy innocence to being like very smart, calculated, and evil. Like, literally Nil's first line is like, oopsie, my sister dropped all of these extremely powerful bracelets on the ground. Oh no, what am I gonna do? And then he like picks them all up, and having all the bracelets together gives you mega invincibility. And then Nil politely asks to kill Alir. So that's reveal number 3, is that Nil has been evil the whole time, and he's been deliberately useless to disarm anybody who might come to oppose him because they don't think he's a threat. Then we get a flashback of Nil discovering what his power is. He can't transform into a dragon, but he can awaken the bracelets, and he can control the corrupted. So he's the person who went around and killed all the royals and brought them back to life. That's all his doing. So in this flashback, he discovers this ability, and Sombron is like, that's great. And Nil is like, now I'm useful. I'm going to tell everybody. And Sombron is like, absolutely do not. You keep this a secret. Because if no one knows how powerful you are, that's going to end up being your true strength. Hush, hush. Chapter 5 happens. The Four Winds are trying to get to Nell. They're trying to support her, but they don't know how to talk to her because she's like really emotional. And then Celestia is like, you know what, you guys? We basically just watched someone process their feelings for a breakup that they've been holding on to for a long time. It's been like half an hour. She might need a little bit more time than that to cool off. And everyone was like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then like Madeline maybe has like poorly concealed feelings for Gregory, maybe has poorly concealed feelings for Mavir. That was a little unclear for me. So Nil is in like full betrayal mode. The Four Winds are trapped in like a temple ? I don't really know where this is taking place, but there's a bunch of corrupted there. So they're fighting for their lives against these zombies. And then we have a fight with Nil somewhere else. This fight was a little bit stressful too, because Nil is a strong super boss with 3 health bars, and Nell is not that powerful. I equipped her with the Ike ring to minimize the amount of damage she took, but I was a little bit stressed. I also thought Alir was going to be in much more trouble because Alir is bound and there's a bunch of long-ranged enemies that can just attack her. Also, I thought the mage cannon class that they introduced was going to be kind of busted, but I really found myself like failing to struggle against them. Like, they're on every map and there's, upwards of 10 of them, I feel like, literally at all times. And I think I got hit like maybe twice. I thought they were going to be a bigger threat. Maybe on higher difficulties they attack more easily, but... So we defeat Nil in this fight to save Nell, to save Alir. The Four Hounds are at the end of their rope by the end of this battle, and they decide that the only way for them to escape is if they knock down the 4 pillars of, again, this like kind of nondescript place that they're in. If they knock down these pillars, the building is going to collapse. So Mavir is like, we're going to do it. And they're all like, okay, I guess we're dying together. And then at the last second, Mavir pulls out a warp staff and then is like, actually, I'm going to teleport you away. And then they're all very upset about that, obviously, because their friend is about to die. So he sacrifices himself to save them, which is also why they like totally flatly characterized him so that it doesn't feel like as much of a loss in the main game because we still have Mavir anyways. I think that's like the main reason why he's not different. And I had a sense that he was going to die anyways. LOL. I have another note here that says, are Maddie and Marnie played by the same voice actor? Like, why do I remember her being more annoying? Madeline sounds like a normal adult woman. And Marnie is like classically annoying. Like she's up here and she's like talking crazy and blah, 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 blah. And then Madeline is like talking just like a human. Also, sorry, I'm switching forth between Madeline and Madeline. I don't remember. There's an odd moment at the end of this fight that like doesn't make sense where Nil like does something to Nell that like incapacitates her, but she just like hunches over. Like I don't really understand what happened here. And then he kidnaps her, and then we get another flashback to Sombron. He's just like hanging out, monologuing for the walls. I think he's talking about winning the war, which obviously this is a flashback, so we know that that didn't work out for him. He's just speaking his thoughts out loud, and he's just very confident in Nell and Nil. You know, Nell is very physically powerful, and Nil is brutal and is actually evil, and he'll do what needs to be done. And he also reveals that they aren't actually twins. There are multiple good reveals here. The fact that Nell and Nil aren't twins is stupid because it doesn't really mean anything. And also, Nil supposedly looks exactly like the Nil who died as a child. So I'm like, that's weird that you conveniently had a body double who could just like hop right in there and take over. So the beginning of the next chapter, the last chapter, the climax, is Nil doing this like soap opera bit where he's like, I'm not actually your twin brother. And they really, they really milk it. And then Nil transforms into a dragon with the power of the bracelets. The song that they use in this chapter is also kind of a banger. I don't know if it's in the main game at all or if it's unique to this one, but I loved it. Also, the fact that this chapter opens and it's like, if you lose a character in this chapter, do not worry about it. There is no permadeath on here. I know that removes some of the challenge, but as someone who wasn't expecting the islands to fall in only one turn and that your unit would be killed on that one turn, it was really helpful that I didn't have to lose 5 minutes of progress and restart the map. And I enjoy that Nil can just like randomly kill multiple of your units if you're not playing well. I was not playing well on this map. I lost at least 4 people, I think, which honestly doesn't matter in the end because Nil falls really easily. So we win the fight. Nell and Nil are talking, and Nell is like, yeah, I knew you weren't my brother. You are a completely different human. I loved you like a brother, but I know you weren't the one that I was born with, but that doesn't change things for me. Like, she's trying to find a resolution, and then they like continue bickering, and then Nell is like, I understand that you having to like keep these secrets made your life harder. So instead of vowing to live better lives together, I am going to kill myself. Like, this really didn't make sense. They lost me here. And then they also do mind control nonsense, and they say that the dragon stone that was on Nil's chest was like cursed by Sombron, but not like actually cursed, but only such that Nil would commit to like kind of bad behavior. I don't like when they do this. Mind control is really hard to do in narrative because it removes agency, and then also like they're using it as a way to absolve Nil of wrongdoing. Like, why would you do that and take away from a possible redemption arc? And also, you have a redemption arc set up regardless of this nonsense Dragonstone evil vibes manipulation. I think, like, instead of Nell soap opera tragedy killing herself to free Nil, and then Nil being, like, fake influenced by the Dragonstone, have Nil go too far. Like, give me a cutscene where he, like, brutally injures her. And then there's a kind of sad death scene where she's like, I knew you weren't my brother and I loved you anyways. And then that kind of like deflates the situation. Like, let them talk it out. Also, there's no point to what Nil is doing because everyone is a dead zombie. Like, Slay, you have ultimate power, but what are you going to do with it? I needed a sibling vow to like want to go on. Like, the redemption should have come from Nil helping Nell recover. I do have to give the script some credit because some other characters, like, the stone must have been controlling you with bad magic, and Nil is like, that's stupid and you're stupid for suggesting it. So I'm happy that a character was on the same page as me in regards to that, because Nil is like, I still did what I did, and I don't think that's true. Anyways, the fight is done. They all go back to Lithos Castle. Nell is comatose, injured, but not dead. And Alir is like, if you want to come back to Elios with me, You guys are welcome too. And Nil is like, I literally just tried to kill you. Why would you say that? And Alira is like, I think you'll do the right thing. And then Alira goes home. And then the really awful OST from the beginning of the game, it's like a slight remix of it, that plays. And then we get a bunch of CGs as the credits roll. And the CGs are really good. I just wish it was a better song. The most important CG is Nil staying with Nell until she recovers and wakes up. And then it ends and you have 5 new playable characters. So that's the Fel Xenologue. I have nothing else to say. Overall, I did quite enjoy it. I thought the maps were fun. I'm excited to go back and play, engage again on a New Game Plus. Now that I have some characters that I actually care about and that I'm excited to play as, stay tuned for that. I'll get around to it when I have the time. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I do want to quit my job. And let me know what you thought about the Fel Xenologue. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What worked for you? What didn't? Was the gameplay better? Do you think they relied too heavily on these new classes? Anyways, yeah, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.